Hi, I'm Simon Marshall from Hamilton, Ontario. I play drums in Adelleda, and I'm an occasional member of Barbed Wire Braces. Growing up, my parents were actually a pretty big influence for music. I used to smash the keyboard in Sunday school, and they said, "Simon, you gotta learn an instrument. Let's get you signed up for piano lessons." So that came before the guitar lessons, and they were just very supportive of whatever I wanted to do musically. First exposure to music was through the radio. If I heard something I'd liked, I would buy it on cassette tape using the paper route earnings that I would make in elementary school. I would also discover some bands through Beavis and Butthead based on if they were not trash talking the band or not. First time hearing Green Day was on the radio in 1994, and it resonated deeply with me as it was much more exciting than anything else I had heard up to that point. I was about 10 at the time, and suddenly I had a favorite band. I was listening to a melting pot of music by that point, however. Soundgarden, Our Lady Peace, Rage Against the Machine, White Zombie, Silverchair, just to name a few. Shortly after that, I spent a year in the Scottish Highlands. That was such a culture shock as there was almost nothing to do, so naturally I learned to play guitar. My parents would take us on these epic road trips, so naturally I'd listen to music on the way. The UK had this massive music store called the Virgin Megastore, and they were easy to find in the big cities. That's where I discovered the Green Day singles and merch that was not easily available back home. I had also recently been introduced to Rancid and Out Come the Wolves, and listened to that quite a bit. This was the year 1996, a few years before the internet became a thing, and I was now discovering new music through the Virgin Megastore and through the Kerrang magazine, which was a weekly publication in the UK. Shortly after high school, I started listening to my first Punk-O-Rama comps, and it became clear that punk was my go-to. By that point, the internet arrived, and it made discovering bands from those comps much easier. The further I went down that rabbit hole, the more bands I discovered, and the more people I ultimately met. Learning drums at that age led to more opportunities to play in bands than guitar did. Okay, so here are some of those singles from the Virgin Megastore. You got a single from Dookie. Insomniac came out shortly after that. You've got the Geek Stink Breath single. You know, there were some B-sides on here that didn't appear on the album. You know, some more Green Day singles like that might not have been on the album at the time. One of my personal favorites, Stuck With Me. Very cool stuff for Green Day fans at the time. So my first show was a local show at the Transit Union Hall in Hamilton. A friend from high school insisted that I tag along to it. I don't remember exactly who played. I know there was a punk band, ska band, a hardcore band, a metal band, and probably something else in between. And we would find out about these shows through the 905 message board, which became a big thing afterwards. My first punk show that I ever went to probably was Goldfinger at the Cool House, shortly after my first show at the Transit Union Hall. And that was pretty awesome because they had all their big hits from their first couple of albums, and yeah, they put on an awesome show. Some of the favorite shows that I attended were the Bigwig and Belvedere shows that rolled through the Trashateria in Guelph in the early 2000s. I remember being so psyched about those bands. There was a specific bigwig show that my friend's mom drove us to, and she got lost on the way. And we showed up when the show was supposed to end, but bigwig were just about to go on stage. So that made us very happy that we got to catch our favorite band. Another favorite show was the Bouncing Souls and Hot Water Music at the Opera House in 2003. A couple nights before was the great blackout of 2003. The Bouncing Souls were on tour. They were playing acoustic sets leading up to that Toronto show. And by a good stroke of luck, the power went back on just in time for the show. And to make things even sweeter, it was on the eve of the release of the Anchors Away album, which was the sweet spot in their discography, if you ask me. A lot of classic shows at the Old Underground in Hamilton in the early 2000s as well. Some that really stand out were Agnostic Front. There was an Ignite show, and one of the last shows I remember going to at the Underground was actually Strike Anywhere, the Bouncing Souls, and the Loved Ones, and I thought that was just a dream come true. Countless festivals. Some of my favorite festivals that I attended: Warped Tour Skydome 2001, Rockfest 2014 in Montebello, Quebec, and Camp Anarchy, Ohio 2019. So the craziest thing that ever happened at a show actually happened to us at a Lagwagon show in Pouza Fest in Montreal. And Steve Voss, the singer of Adelleda, my band, he describes this in great detail in episode 63. So I recommend you all check that out. But I'll tell another story about a show that Adelleda played in Midland, Ontario. And this show was a dirty winter show a bunch of years back, big snowstorm. And all the kids that came out to the show showed up in snowmobiles. And it was at the back of a makeshift rental storage warehouse where the kids were hanging off the rafters above us during our whole set. It was a crazy show. And the crazy part about it is that it was a dry show and the kids were that amped up. So we learned music was a very big deal for that part of the province. All right, here's my rundown of past and current bands. First real band that I played in was a punk band called Year's End. Shout out to Dave, Derek, and Rob if you guys are listening. My first real band playing drums in. That was a lot of fun. That went from like 2003 to 2008. We thought we sounded exactly like the Bouncing Souls, Bombshell Rocks, and Pulley. After that band ended, I started a band with Craig Argyle. Shout out to him. We were called Our Sinking Cities. That was a pretty fun band. Shortly after that, I joined Adelleda on drums, and I've been in that band ever since. We're going on year 14 this year, which is very impressive. So shout out to Steve, Chris, Kevin, our new guitar player Tim. You guys rock. Side projects along the way, I've had quite a few. I played in Hamilton Defense Army with Glenn Fallman and Chris Crash, playing a lot of old school punk covers. Another band I played in was called Scarred Hands. That was a lot of fun too for the short period that we played. Underwater Bingo for Teens was another pop punk, skate punk kind of band that was going for a little while there. So shout out to Steve, Davey, and those guys. I started another cover band back in 2018 with Kevin from Adelleda, Ryan Pippi, and our general manager behind the bar here at Clifford's, Jesse. That gave me an opportunity to play guitar while he played drums. So Jesse Stratton, cheers bud. And then another band that I started playing in as a side project, which I still occasionally play in, is Barbed Wire Braces. Shout out to Shane and Mark. You guys rock. Can't wait to play with you guys again. What I like the most about being a musician is how music allows me to be creative, and I like how it forces us to challenge ourselves. I love the reward of playing out live, and I like being influenced by the other artists I share the stage with. I love the way that music makes me feel in general. I don't necessarily dislike anything about being a musician, but I will include a few disclaimers, as it can be a thankless job at times. Lugging drum gear around can sometimes suck. I also think that jokes about drummers not being musicians are bullshit. And shuttering venues post-COVID has also made it a bit challenging for music to thrive. My favorite food is authentic pad thai. We're not talking Montana's or Kelsey nonsense. We're talking authentic pad thai with shrimp, tofu, and chicken. I also like a good pre-show smoothie. So the day of a big show, I like to have, your frozen berries, your Greek yogurt, your spinach, your almond milk, your turmeric, your flaxseed, all that healthy stuff that helps you crush it live.
Simon, what is your most useless talent?
All right, huge shout out to Steve Reniewick and Stronger Than Ever videos. This was pretty awesome. Steve, we don't usually get to hang out outside of the loud venues we frequent, so this was a lot of fun. I love your platform and what it's doing to help promote other musicians in the scene. So cheers, rock on.